Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'd like to welcome you to our second Honoring All Voices Community Vision Forum today, Monday. And my name is Benaiah Kim Cromwell. Not only am I a community member, not only am I a committee member, but I'm also the chairman of Robinson Rancheria. So I'd like to welcome everyone here to Robinson Rancheria Resort and Casino. And thank you for coming here this evening and spending a little bit of your time with us. We have a lot, it's our second one, so we're going to do this again. So thank you for those who are coming back. And then I want to hand it over to Gilbert so he can help those with the translation.
Buenas tardes a todos. ¿Alguna persona aquí en presencia que guste servicios de interpretación en español? Levante la mano. Para nuestros amigos y público en Zoom o cualquier otro método en línea, si ocupan ayuda con interpretación, en Zoom, por favor, prendan la cámara si la tienen apagada y nomás levanten su mano. Tenemos un intérprete en Zoom. Gracias.
Before I hand the mic over to Supervisor Crandall, I just wanted to say thank you, not only for being here, but those who put this room together, our spread together, our IT together, all those that work here at the resort, and all those who have come from the county. Thank you very much. Things like this couldn't take place if we didn't have teamwork. And so that's part of how we work together. So I'm grateful for that opportunity, everyone who put the time in, and we're still doing it all the way up to the start time. So thank you very much. But I do want to introduce another Robinson member, Supervisor Crandall, if he can come up to the stage at this time. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And I'm just going to put this right here because I'm going to read something. It's an honor for me to serve the land of my ancestors, of course. Today is the 173rd anniversary since the Bloody Island Massacre. And so I'm going to read, this is I think it's more like a documented story from my Uncle Clayton Duncan, who does the forgiveness ceremony. And we did this Saturday morning at 5 a.m. And we went out and right at the sunrise, songs, talked about forgiveness and whatnot. So I'm going to read this. And so 15 May 1850, the anniversary of the Bloody Island Massacre. So on this day, a detachment of U.S. Army cavalry and a militia led by Lieutenant Nathaniel Lyon and Lieutenant John W. Davidson attacked and killed at least between 100 and 200 people. It could be more, but that's what it says. Possibly more, according to various estimates, at an island encampment called Ba Donapati, or Bonapati, meaning Old Island. And this is at the north end of the lake known to U.S. settlers as Clear Lake, in territory under present-day local jurisdiction of Lake County. At least 75 more Pomo were massacred at nearby locations along the Russian River on one of the following days under the command of Lieutenants Lyon and Davidson. The U.S. Army authorities had been informed that some members of the Pomo people of the area had killed two Clear Lake settlers, Andrew Kelsey and Charles Stone, who were associated with the U.S. Army Captain John C. Fremont during the initial U.S. invasion of the territory which is known as California. Kelsey and Stone had imposed a local U.S. colonialist tyranny in the area and had been enslaving, including sexual slavery, severely abusing and murdering Pomo people. Most of the young men at Bonapati were out in the mountains north hunting when the U.S. soldiers and militiamen arrived. The people present were mostly women, children, and elderly. The island Pomo leader, Gewili, met the soldiers and the militiamen with his hands up to indicate peace, but the soldiers immediately began shooting. The soldiers then proceeded to indiscriminately massacre the island community. The soldiers shot and bayoneted the people to death. They bayoneted infants and small children and threw their bodies into the water. They picked up infants and smashed their heads against tree trunks, a practice U.S. soldiers during the 19th century called braining. This was considered a battle at first. However, it was changed later on by Clayton Duncan to be known as the massacre. There was very little resistance possible, and the U.S. soldiers suffered no injuries. It was a pure massacre which turned the island into the Bloody Island. Many of those people who tried to escape across the water were shot as they swam Under Lieutenant Lyon's command, U.S. soldiers hunted down escapees and killed them. According to the testimony of Pomo woman named Badon Bidame, one Pomo man who was caught by the soldiers near a hill was tied to a tree and burned alive to death. Only a small number of Pomo people who had been at Badunapati survived that tragic day. One of those survivors of the massacre at Badunapati was 6-year-old girl named Nika, who's known as Lucy Moore, which is my great-great-great-grandmother and Benai's great-great-great-grandmother. She survived the massacre by hiding under the water, breathing a tule reed. 150 years later, the year 2000, Nika's great-grandson, Clayton Duncan, founded the Lucy Moore Foundation. According to Clayton, the members of the militia, some of them prominent members of the U.S. Colonialist Society, subsequently took possession of the Pomo lands around the lake and all over Lake County. The unofficial design of this particular military expedition was to clear the land of its indigenous inhabitants. The policy of the state of California during the 1850s, supported by the U.S. federal government, was to exterminate all of the indigenous population, which also became a template to how they dealt with massacres throughout the United States, especially in this region and in the Midwest region, like the Sand Creek Massacre and whatnot. So Lieutenant Lyon and Davidson were both promoted by the U.S. Federal Army to the rank of Brigadier General during the U.S. Civil War with the approval of 16th U.S. President Abraham Lincoln. Lyon received the highest position of Commander of the Department of the West. After he was killed soon afterwards, Lyon was honored by the U.S. Congress, which passed a resolution of thanks to his military service. One note, General Lyon was killed by the Confederate Army later on. So another note, Brevet Major General Davidson died from a serious injury falling from a horse in Minnesota. So I don't know if anyone believes in karma, but the U.S. Army's act of physical genocide at Clear Lake on May 15, 1850, encouraged and led a general outbreak of U.S. settlers' attacks and mass killings against indigenous people all over the northern portion of the territory under present-day jurisdiction of the U.S. state of California. There were many other genocidal massacres that year in the region, including massacres against the Yurok people during the 1850s and 60s, the California Holocaust. The Pomo and Yurok populations were reduced approximately 25% less of what they were before that. Thereafter, the remnant of Pomo were forced to live in small rancherias set aside by the U.S. federal government. For most of the 20th century, the Pomo, greatly reduced in number, survived in such tiny reservations in poverty. Yet, here we are, we're moving to that direction of healing, and we're here to share our story, and I understand that this is a lot of pain, but we believe in forgiveness, and we believe in the future. So thank you for hearing me on that, and I will next introduce Matthew Rothstein to come up and talk more about what we're doing. So thank you for hearing this story of the Bloody Island Massacre and my ancestors.
Thank you, Supervisor Crandall, for those powerful words, and thank you, Chairman Cromwell, for all that you and Robinson Rancheria have done to make this really a spectacular and very appropriate setting for this evening's meeting. The leadership that both of you have brought throughout this process has been truly indispensable, and we're really grateful for all of your efforts so far. Before we go any further, I also want to acknowledge that we have many people here in the Zoom room this evening, expertly facilitated by Dr. Shelley Holt. And I want to thank all of you who are joining remotely this evening. And Dr. Shelley, do you have a few words of instruction or otherwise to the folks in Zoom before we go further?
Thank you, Matthew. Just if you need anything, feel free to talk to us in the chat. And once we get into big breakout rooms, if you need translation services or ASL or Spanish, let me know so that I can make sure you get your needs met. Thank you.
Thank you again, Dr. Shelley. As many will be aware, on February 23, 2021, the Lake County Board of Supervisors unanimously proclaimed promoting tolerance, respect, equity, and inclusion among their highest priorities. The County Administrative Office was pleased to partner with community members and supervisors in the development of this historic item. It culminated a grassroots effort inspired by a sermon from local minister and Countywide Community Visioning Forum Planning Committee collaborator, Clovis Lewis. Joanne Sakato and the Community Call to Action group brought amazing community leadership. And on that historic day in February 2021, each member of the Board of Supervisors read a portion of the proclamation. In part thanks to District 2 Supervisor Bruno Sabatier's request that the language be as positive and forward-thinking as possible, it included a commitment to taking action. The board committed to hosting public conversations like tonight's forum, to hear the experiences and priorities of local residents in 5 categories: meaningful actions and activities that will build bridges where there may be walls, fostering tolerance, respect, understanding, equity, and inclusion, promoting nonviolence and nonviolent conflict resolution, focusing resources on underlying causes and conditions that lead to inequitable resource and justice distribution, and relevant solutions for any social injustices, as they may come to light. Following that historic proclamation, community members and leaders from the County of Lake, cities of Clear Lake and Lakeport, and tribal governments formed the Countywide Community Visioning Forum Planning Committee. And I'm proud to say that tonight's event was ultimately planned and supported by dozens of people, formal committee members, and many, many others. And I just want to say before we go any further, technical difficulties and everything, thank you to all of you. And thank you to our technical team for seeing through the challenges that we experienced, and thank you all for your patience and for recognizing the importance of this conversation and staying around. We really appreciate that. And many thanks are also due to Stephanie Griffin for generously leading provision of childcare for tonight's event. If there's anyone here that is interested in childcare, it's a couple doors down, and there are some snacks and activities for children there. Chairman Cromwell and Robinson Rancheria, I also want to thank you again for providing this incredible venue and for the food and beverages that are over here to my left in the room. And those will definitely help sustain this important conversation tonight. I want to also thank our interpreters. We have Gilbert and Jeneth from Equilingual, and Trani and Tanya from Pro Bono ASL. We really appreciate your making this event more accessible to more people. And with thanks to the Lake County Board of Supervisors and Clear Lake and Lakeport City Councils for their financial support, it's now my privilege to introduce to you our lead facilitator for this evening's event, Nicole Anderson. Nicole and her team have been indispensable leaders in the movement to promote cultural competency and greater understanding.
Excuse me, I'm going to pause whoever is speaking. We can barely hear you. Would you mind putting your microphone closer to your mouth so we can hear you?
Okay. Can you hear me back? Can you hear me now? Okay, great. Thank you. So Nicole Anderson and her team have been indispensable leaders in the movement to promote cultural competency and greater understanding in communities, school districts, local governments, and other organizations across the state of California and well beyond. Nicole, welcome, and we're really grateful you're here.
All right, I'm going to turn my mic on. Sound okay? Testing, testing, testing. All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to try this again. Good evening. I need the energy because we got to give you energy. Good evening. Good evening. It is great to be here. I come all the way from...
Little louder, Nicole.
All right. I'm on the mic. It's about as loud as it gets, right? Can y'all hear me? Hear me? Zoom. Can you hear me okay? Looks like it's real low for them. All right, looks like it's a little bit low for them. All right.
Nicole, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to reboot so that they can hear you.
Okay, so I'm going to pause Zoom, family. If you can hear me okay, I'm going to pause just for a moment. We're going to reboot for a moment. Thank you all in person for being patient. We want to make sure we don't miss having our team. No.
No, just me. Everybody else stay. It's just me.
Don't move. Yeah, don't move. All right. So what we're going to do is, as we're rebooting, just want to do a quick, again, just thank you for allowing me to walk on the space here on an anniversary that brings a lot of pain, obviously, a lot of trauma of the past, but also I think about today as representing healing, because the more dialogue that happens, the more awareness that happens, the more we can really make amends for the past, and also partner with those that have what we call power to be able to come together, hear the voices that may have less power, and really partner around what do we do moving forward. Okay, there's an African saying about Sankofa, which is how we look back at our past in order to know how to move forward in our future. And so I know that your voices are going to be very instrumental, and I want to honor all that are not in the room today, right? Those that may have not felt safe enough to come and have a conversation, those that may not be in that emotional space to have that conversation, but I want to just acknowledge at least the dialogue today, and I'm just honored to be able to help facilitate. I mentioned I come all the way from Vallejo, California, which is about 2 hours south, and always honored to come, but also remembering the land that I stand on. One, just my own identity as an African-American woman, to honor the past of my ancestors and the shoulders I stand on. I stand on the shoulders of Mr. Jesse M. Bethel, which actually there's a high school named after him in Vallejo. As a former educator and someone who fought for civil rights for people of color to have an equal opportunity in education, I stand on his shoulders. But I also stand in a space in Vallejo which also has history. I do recognize and are learning about the coastal Miwoks, the Patwins, as well as we have a city named Sassoon is what we say, but the Sassoonese, which I may have mispronounced every one of them incorrectly. But I also just honor that there's a space where unfortunately, where I live, this type of acknowledgement is not the same. So I'm just honored to be here because there's a lot of pain in history that's not even taught, right, in the space that I'm in. So I just want to thank you again, Matthew, for the partnership, Joanne, for just locking arms with us to make all of these things happen. Just thank you. For the committee members, want to just thank you for the time all year long we've come together and brainstormed about just the systems change, right, and the pain of the past, but also how do we move forward. And just want to just appreciate each of you for partnering with us. Absolutely. And so before I get too far down, what I want to do is actually some introductions just to know who's in the space. So we'll quickly do that just to ensure that we have this kind of family opportunity to come together. And then we'll go back to our Zoom family and make sure we acknowledge them. Okay. And so what we're going to do just very quickly, we'll just whip around to each table, just quickly share what we like to say your first name or the name you would like us to call you by, how we pronounce it, and ultimately what role you represent in the community. Does that make sense? So again, I'm Nicole. I go by Nicole. However, I represent the facilitator. Okay, so just very quick whip around, and then we'll start to move into hopefully our Zoom folks so we can get them introducing themselves, and then we'll get into the conversation because we have some dialogue we want to have, okay? Sound all right? All right, thank you again for just kind of being patient through technical difficulties. So we're going to start at this table, okay, then we'll just whip all the way around, and have every individual just share a name as well as your role in the community. And what I'm going to do is, is this on still so I can make sure everyone can be heard? All right. So I'm feeling like Oprah Winfrey. Remember back in the day for these who watch Oprah? So let's see if we test it out, see if that's working.
Hello.
All right, perfect. All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Layla Romero. I work at Lake County Health Services as the Health Equity Program Coordinator.
Good evening. My name is Luisa Costa, and I represent SEIU Local 2015.
Hi, my name is Maria Figueroa, and I just represent this county as a Hispanic member.
I'm Stacy Cranville, and I'm a therapist that works at Lake County Tribal Health.
Alan, I'm working to change the name of Kelseyville.
My name is Barbara Christwitz, and I'm a concerned community member here and live in Clear Lake.
My name's Littlefeather, and I'm a mother, and so therefore I'm a teacher and a pastor and a auntie to all.
Hioni Kalakdak. My name is Sally Peterson. I am an enrolled member of Middletown Rancheria. I live in Middletown. I'm an active member of South Lake County.
Good evening. I'm Carol Cole Lewis, and I'm a member of the North Shore Business Association and the Lake County Chamber of Commerce, as well as past board president of the Unitarian Universalist community here.
Buenas tardes. I'm Ana Santana. I work with Lake County Office of Education. I'm a member of the Latinos United of Lake County and a community member in Lucerne.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Daniela Santana. I'm a community member, and I'm also the environmental director for Habimital Pomo of Upper Lake.
Hello, my name is Lisa, and my husband Ziggy, and we possibly represent all those that have fallen between the cracks.
Hi, my name is Hope Portney. I'm a former therapist at Lake County Tribal Health and a current stay-at-home mom.
Good evening, I'm JP and I'm the director of the health department.
I'm Dave Geck and I'm a former educator here. Well, I'm still an educator, retired educator in this county.
Hi, I'm Georgina Marie Guardado. I'm the literacy program coordinator for Lake County Library, the Lake County Poet Laureate, and a committee member here.
Hello, my name is Linda Patro Robinson Elder.
Hello, my name is India Mendonça, and I'm a mother,
Able
stay-at-home
to
mother.
participate and see the game. Even with equity, though, you can see that the barrier is still.
Okay. Hello, my name is India Mendonça. This is my daughter here, and I've been a resident here since 2012, and I love it here, and I'm on a literacy coalition with Georgina. And okay, and I'm also on the visioning. I can't even say it. Board, community, committee. Yeah, I can't say it all yet. Right? Okay.
Welcome. And we have an amazing superstar in the room, so I don't want to forget, like our young people.
Thank you.
Can you introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Uwa and I'm 5 years old.
My name's Rick. I'm a resident of Lower Lake and just interested in seeing what good things can be done here in Lake County.
Thank you. We got everyone. Yes, yes, yes. All right, perfect. And again, thank you, Gilbert. Remind me to pause because you know I keep on going. So anything we want to add in before we go? All right, we're good. All right. All right, just doing a quick check for our Zoom family. I think they've just moved along, so they're kind of doing their own form, I think. So what we'll try to do is just pause and then bring their voices in so that we can keep the conversation going. All right, my reporters who are going to share out, again, we're going to shift it to a 1-minute drill. 1 minute, yep. So we'll start with those who are all ready to go. So again, 1-minute drill is going to be modeled very well by our chairman. And then we're going to whip around quick, all right.
All right, thank you everyone. We talked about respect, fairness, and inclusion. Some of those definitions were acknowledging others, your voice being heard and understood, and acceptance for showing interest. Fairness, we had level playing field for all, same opportunity for everyone, and that they all have a chance. Under inclusion, definition is actively being engaged, invitation to join, and bringing others in. Thank you.
Powerful, thank you, thank you. All right, we'll keep it going, Dave.
All right. Our group, respect was respect for the person, the history of that person's role in life. For fairness, we had get allocated the resources we need in order to be able to fully participate. Inclusion was, we liked the University of Pittsburgh definition. We added inviting all people to the table and respecting their differences, including everyone in the conversation. But then we kept talking and said, are there limits to inclusion? To be discussed later.
Oh, I was going to say, what'd you come up with? Are there limits to inclusion? That's like a great next question. Let's see, so our team, we talked about respect, and it's basically being able to see ourselves in others. And so it's important to have self-respect so that we treat others as we treat ourselves. So that went hand in hand together. And that we respect the people they are, regardless of their status, how much money they have, their prestige, any of that. So being we talked about in biblical times when Jesus was walking the planet, and how, if you loved Jesus, you love and you treat and you take care of the vulnerable. And we seem to have gotten away from that in some circles. So that was one thing about, regardless of who you are in community and regardless of your status, that you are actually, down to the next one, everybody receives a basic dignity. Everybody is met and given the dignity and care of respect. Fairness, we talked about how that we as a people get to decide how we're going to live as a community. So it's not being dictated to us by another group or entity, but that we all get to make that decision. And then we support each other across our categories. So regardless of, what our politics are, what team we like the best, right? Kind of a big thing here tonight. That we support each other regardless of that. And then down to, like, one analogy that was given was a team advancing towards the goal, and if we were coming in and just kind of cutting their legs off, they'd never be able to make it to the goal. So we need to support everybody regardless of which team they're on, so that we all get to play. And then we didn't make it to inclusion, except for the whole, the we that gets to decide it, that it's not being decided by just a small group. So.
Thank you. Powerful.
Okay, we don't have a stand. Okay. Oh, here we go. It's our volunteer. You have to do it like Vanna.
Let's do it over here.
Oh, you're good. Okay. So with respect, it was hard to do everything in 10 minutes. With respect, we said perceiving others, how they want to be seen, choosing love over fear, considering a viewpoint, fairness. There was a lot of discussion about that because, it's like you hear people say, well, that's not fair. But it's a lot about a feeling, how someone is feeling. It doesn't always mean equal, like you said, but a lot of times it's cultivated with being equal. Being equal opportunity is something we talked about. So it's really hard. It was hard for us to separate the two. Inclusion, creating a safe, welcoming place for the outsider in question. Just embracing the differences and making people feel welcomed and valued.
Powerful. Thank you. Thank you. All right, last but not least, 1 minute. And we're going to our next question. We have a reporter? All right.
Thank you. Respect. All experiences are valued and understood. Fairness, we just took your definition, equal opportunity and outcomes. Yeah. And inclusion, when you invite someone, you also hear them out.
Yeah, powerful.
Any objections to summary?
Well said. All right. Powerful. Thank you. All right. So you can see the conversations. We have a lot of similar definitions, but then you also have different ways of seeing the responses. And so now I know that the conversation, to your point, is trying to go a little bit deeper and feeling like you need more time. So a lot of this really drives into our next question. So facilitators, we're going to try again the 10 minutes, but we may go into, I actually gave you all more time than you thought. But this next question is really important, is what gets in the way of you or your family getting your needs met? So remember, a lot of this is around people's needs being met, right? Respect, fairness, inclusion. But now let's start unpacking some examples, concrete examples of what gets in the way. So we call these the barriers, that fence that stands in the way. Okay, so facilitators are going to go ahead again, jump in, and we'll go another 10 minutes. Make sure you just go around and have every single individual share. okay? And then we'll do a little time check again and have share out. So what gets in the way? All right, recorder, be recording as you hear these responses. Go. All right. So let's see what team is ready to go. Reporter, ready to go. We're ready? Nope. My fellow athlete, I do get it. I understand. All right, so we'll start off with our share out. 1 minute.
I can do it in 30 seconds. Thank you very much. To answer the question for our group, what gets in the way of our needs for our family? We thought higher education opportunities, and that's not just like, it's like what opportunities do you have? Like if they even had like we did have a college here for a while, but it might only had like 4 or 5 degrees you could have attained. So reparations for the harm due for the local community and natives over the years. Funds that their resources are very tight here, and so when they get discriminated to only help this department or these individuals, so we believe that there's needs that aren't able to get access. There's a lack of support for the LGBTQ plus community here in our community. And then representation of all voices and cultures and backgrounds. And some people never get out of Lake County, so they don't know what to include, or they feel awkward when other people come in, and vice versa. Like other people need to come in to help us. Well, we're not seeing and being a part of. Last 2 things, healing historical trauma, and that means symbolism, could be words, could be towns, but things like that. And then helping changing the mindset and the thoughts of those who've just always been here and they're not going to change. So there's a need for that to help our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Powerful. Wow, what's getting in the way of getting our needs met?
Okay. All right, for our group, other people being aware of the laws or rights to protect themselves, really, we don't know often. Lack of education and awareness. Ignorance about our rights. Others may not know where to go to get the information to get their needs met. Then we thought about, people in, decision makers in higher positions don't care or don't listen or don't acknowledge our needs. So, we were kind of working on that end.
Yeah, so we had access to health, specifically specialty health and wellness providers. So if you have a certain condition, you have to either go to Ukiah or Santa Rosa or something. The bureaucracy can sometimes get in the way. Sometimes you have to really advocate hard for yourselves to get your needs met. Fragmented cultures and towns, that beautiful geographic barrier that's in the center of all of our communities, right, the lake, can sometimes get in the way. And then because of those fragmented cultures and towns that are dotting around, sometimes isolation or the perception of being isolated can get in the way of getting our needs met.
Our note taker came back.
Hello. We had finances, specifically the rental market, access to the internet, job opportunities, general lack of compassion, finding community connections with people of compassion, and not knowing where to get help.
That was short and sweet. Thank you so much. And I can't overlook a friend I just met, and we didn't get to acknowledge another one of our young people in the community. So just real quick, can we do a quick introduction, my friend? So you are?
Leo. Third.
And Leo has some interesting things that I got to learn about the experience in schools as an educator. So we'll follow up on that. And hopefully that's included in your notes about what needs are not being met for our students. Because this is super important because our young people become adults. And what they share in third grade actually does carry over into adulthood. So really important to share. Can I steal, Leo, just what you shared, just kind of give one word, if that's okay, that a lot of students have shared? So bullying at school. And I'm just going to add one piece, adults not standing in the gap and really interrupting that bullying, which, absolutely. And fast forward, some of the things that get in our way, right? That adult bullying still happens, right? So thank you, Leo, for just sharing a little truth with me, okay? Let you know we got work to do, huh? All right, last but not least.
So for us, the things that get in our way, for me and my family, I was putting myself in the people that I serve. The number one thing, it's language. If I don't speak the language, I'm not ever going to understand. And I'm going to be afraid to go and ask. Lack of outreach, unless people let others know what's available, I'm never going to find out. And also, not knowing what's available. You know, we have a lot of agencies in our community that serve the community. They have these things, but if I don't know, if people don't reach out to the specific community, I'm never going to know. Also, the fear. What if I go in and ask for help and, you know, I don't know what to expect? Lack of health insurance. You know, we've talked about the need for, you know, care. And if I don't have health insurance, I'm not going to go out there and I'm not going to go to the hospital, for instance, and be stuck with a bill. Sometimes, and for people, it's lack of transportation. If they don't have a driver's license, they're not going to dare to drive. Money, childcare, and also elderly care. If I cannot leave my loved one with anybody, I can't go seek any help or anything.
Ooh, yeah, powerful. Sure.
I just forgot because I had to run off. But with respect, we wanted to add, when we're meeting people, we're choosing to see them through the eyes of love rather than fear. Inclusion, we're choosing to see people through the eyes of love rather than fear. And fairness, choosing to see people with love rather than fear. We wanted to put that for all of them. I forgot to add that. Thank you.
Powerful. And I think the key word I heard, not only love, but the choosing, right? The choosing, yeah, which is really going to kind of get us into our third question. But I just want to acknowledge that as you heard everyone share out, again, same question, but notice collectively we really unpacked some of the things that are getting in the way. And your brains are probably going into like our fourth question, which is more about like, what do we do? So before we get into that, though, I think what is important is acknowledging our third question, because a lot of these barriers come from some past harm, right? Some past pain. All right, my friends, I'm going to bring the mic around so we can get to our last question, which ties right into what your discussion is. So,
Reading and educating about historic events, acknowledging that the name of Kelseyville needs to be changed, and educating the educators.
right. And what you're going to find is as we go around, there's going to be some common themes. So if we can actually add to, but not repeat, if that's okay, anything new that you have. So I heard Kelseyville, I heard educating educators, and I also heard about acknowledgement. Yeah. And the first one is, okay, got it. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Talking about bullying, we don't want to say it's okay. We can't tell our children, don't bully, yet you live in a town that is named after someone who went way beyond bullying. Way beyond bullying, but don't you bully. It doesn't make any sense. And then when our kids have nervous breakdowns, we wonder why.
So one of the first steps to healing is acknowledged through changing the name of a city, right? Based on past history. Yep. Yep. All right, keep it going.
I would not feel comfortable if I don't speak up. But a couple of weeks ago, not weeks, maybe a couple months ago, there was an email that came out from the Kelseyville Business Association where they took a vote. Okay, they took a vote that Kelseyville will remain as Kelseyville. Just so you know. So sometimes, you know, the mindset of people hurts and kills. So anyway, what history must be acknowledged to begin community healing? For me personally, and again, you know, I'm speaking for myself, we have to acknowledge that there's a problem and we've made mistakes. When we don't acknowledge this, we're never going to heal. Again, my personal thing. Education and history, these two for me go together. If we want our kids to respect something and to know the history, we need to talk about it. You know, I often speak to the farm workers about Cesar Chavez. If you don't know who Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta are, I don't know where you've been, but every single, si se puede, every farm worker, men or women, young or old, they all have to know the history of Cesar Chavez. They all have to know the history of Martin Luther King. If people want to talk about loss, right? And then, of course, the school, they need to really focus on the history and the education. Maria here, she mentioned that she didn't know the history that our supervisor was talking about until she began to work for the department that she used to work. I'm wondering how many others know the history. And if we don't know the history, how are we going to respect? You know, when you guys come out and say, you know, this is what's hurting us, you guys are stepping on that stone that is holy to us. And if we don't know, my apologies, but these two need to shine up. Racism and discrimination. A lot of Latinos here in this county feel it. You know, I share that when I was little, my dad never allowed us to have loud music because if we did, the police heard the Mexican music, we were going to be pulled over. And somebody might be detained. And to this date, some people fear that. Okay? And you know what? Lastly, let's acknowledge and let's take some action.
Well said. All right.
Thank you very much. I'd like to follow up. Ours, to answer the question what history needs to be acknowledged, that majority perspective and the pulp culture that took place in this country, and to say things like we don't know the impact that might have done on generations. And so if you say, oh, I'm woke now that's a bad word. So it's a whole anti-push against inclusion in culture and accepting others. So acknowledged majority perspective hasn't been the best in this country. Also acknowledge that indigenous communities lived in balance with the land and water here. And so if we acknowledge those things that like tell the truth about how it was developed and resources were stolen and land was stolen, and exploitation of labor, it could really help acknowledge that kind of healing that needs to happen. And then greed over humanity, and acknowledge resiliency of the community that's still with us here today. Oh.
Powerful. All right.
Well, we had much the same list and discussion that other tables had. The history of not acknowledging unprotected people, the violence that's going on, not acknowledging the lack of addressing the bullying, and then I think, not acknowledging that there's this inaction that's happening. People are not acting. They're just kind of turning their back on it and saying, okay, well, it's happening over there, but not here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's good.
Especially not in Kelseyville.
Yeah. Let's see, so ours is, it kind of got summed up in a couple things. One is that wherever you are, to get a full history of that place, because there's going to be generation upon generation of history that has happened wherever you're at on the planet. And then we talked about having gratitude for the survivors of the harm that has been inflicted. Like today we stand on tribal lands. Well, anywhere in Lake County you stand on tribal lands. But to acknowledge the survivors, and I could share a personal story the first time I went into a roundhouse here in Lake County, and to see the prayers survived, I mean, it was just unbelievable to know that those were almost exterminated from the planet. And that just, it was astonishing. And then to recognize, actually to learn your own personal history, because every history has survivors, every history has dominators, every history has. And in doing that, it helps us relate and understand another person's history. And then finally, to recognize the past as we're moving forward in the future. It's not like you want to recognize the past and be done with it, but you're going to transcend and include, right, as we continue to evolve, to embrace that past and bring it with us as we move forward. Did that catch that? So, yeah. So, thank you.
Wow. And you can see how the discussion, again, how rich it is going from table to table to table, right? Just how rich this is. And I just want you to envision, like, if you just expand these voices, right, and continue this conversation across the community, powerful responses. And so you might also feel like our our question, our last one, is really about like actions, right? So I see, what do we need to do to acknowledge? And I can tell that that is a big piece of the work, right? When we talk about what's getting in the way of our needs for our families and ourselves, obviously, what does it mean to feel respect, to feel inclusion, to feel fairness? And so our final question is actually about like the actions, like what is it that would support all residents, okay, in feeling respected, included, and experiencing fair outcomes. So what is it that would support all residents in feeling fairness, inclusion, and ultimately fair outcomes, okay? So for the sake of time, I'm going to give you a total of 8 minutes on this because you've already started this conversation in your question 3. So 8 minutes, and we're going to do our final share out, all right, so that we can try to get you out here on time. But great discussions. Let's keep it going for question 4. All right, go. So I'm going to go ahead and let's get our last round of share outs. We have about 5 minutes left, and so I want to make sure we hear our voices. All right, who's ready first? Look. Rock, paper, scissors.
They weren't even standing. All right. If there's a microphone that's hot, I'm ready. You don't get to this position without it. All right. Thank you very much. Support at our table looks like an open forum. Everyone is heard, and there's collective planning with input from others. It's a safe learning space for everyone in all of our community areas, classrooms, and events. So safe. And then a dialogue is not locking you into one side. You're open, you're thinking, you allow other sides to come in and think, so you're just not locked into one side. And then the support is through our education, a K through 12, to teach POMO, math, ceremonies, history, government, enrollment, trauma, like this, age appropriate, of course, but teach them. They live here. This is their community. This is the community that's still here and resilient. And then you can have pride about, I learned where I was from when they talk to their friends 10, 15, 20 years down the line, that our community really did recognize those that came before us, and they taught us. So That's it. I'll hand it up over here, but thank you everyone for being here and being heard, and I just wanted to acknowledge that, so thank you for coming.
Hard to follow the chairman. But, we were talking that we all love the land, the lake around here. How can we learn to love each other? I mean, that's really, one of the big challenges. Begin to be transparent about what's wrong, creating trust, changing the culture so it's more compassion, love. We had MLK. We had become a culture of love and compassion, a beloved community. That's what we need to do. I like the specific steps to make it happen, though, over there. That way.
Let's see. So, of course, acknowledging our history here in Lake County, we think is something that's really important to bring us to support this. And then helping to create a sense of safety regardless of affiliation, because there's a lot of fragmentation that's happening in our community. How can we create that regardless of who you are, what you believe, who you love, how you identify, any of that you are safe in our community? We need to do that. Valuing public spaces. We feel that our public spaces are being underutilized, and that may be connected to this idea of feeling safe in community. And bridging gaps between perception and reality. We talked about social media and computers and how that world is allowing us to have information right in our face that we would have never had if we were relying on just in-person connections, and that it can create a lot of misperceptions. So working to bridge those gaps. And then having a visioning event like this at a park. And more community building events for the sake of community building events. Just to be able to get together and do fun things where there isn't an ulterior motive to any of it. But just that we all remember when we were kids, all on bikes and, all just out together playing and all of that. So creating those conditions.
Thank you.
Okay, we just felt it was important to have the basic needs of everyone met, just a warm place to be and just obvious things. It shouldn't be such a struggle. Just affordable healthcare, affordable housing, nutrition, internet accessibility. And also, more of this, and a park sounds great. And this lady here has already kind of started this. She had her and her husband, had 80 people. They all went online. They split into working groups. They worked on this proclamation. They worked on police oversight / racial profiling and mental health intervention. So instead of reinventing the wheel, we've already got little seeds we can water. Everything's in place. We just need to connect and find it.
Powerful. Thank you. Acknowledge that. Keep that great work going, right? All right. Last but not least.
What would support all Lake County residents feeling respected, included, and experiencing fair outcomes? We have bilingual full-time staff. So like I explained to them when I was working at public health, I did not know that I could get paid for being bilingual. And I was always getting pulled from my job to come and translate. And until I was told, you can stop translating and explain why you're not. So I did, and that's what we need, bilingual, full staff. Reach out to the community leads and be able to trust them. Use community radio and media and connection with community services. I'm sorry, but in regards to what's going on right now, a lot of us were not aware. We were not aware. And after hearing that it was not only the Latino community, but also seniors and other communities, now we feel like, okay, it was not only us, but we need better outreach, better connections.
Powerful. Wow. This is interesting. There's some great ideas in the room, and just want to acknowledge, again, each individual group coming together. This was not planned who to be sitting with who, right? But I tell you, the power of sharing your stories, the power of engaging in a conversation about your individual experiences, and just appreciate that. But the collective, honestly, like you all have created an action plan today, just to be clear. I know it seems like, oh, this is messy. We got chart paper everywhere. We got sticky notes, and we're going to collect all that, take pictures, and we're going to articulate all of this great data that was collected tonight. We call it qualitative data that the county needed, right? And to your point, you know, about like just outreach, and there's a lot of voices aren't here. I know we've talked about that quite a bit, like how do we get more? And remember, some of it is the fear, right? Some of it is just like some of the ways of not having the internet, not having access. So you all have identified a lot of barriers to just creating space like this just to hear voices. And so I don't want to undervalue what you've done today. Each time we've had more voices, and we look forward to yet another conversation in June 5th to be exact, to continue. And one of the things that's going to be really important is that as you think about the discussions that happened today, is that you do what we say, bring a friend along, right? Continue to use your voice as a tentacle in the community so that people do know when and where these opportunities lie. I want to again acknowledge the committee, because part of the whole point of this was that the committee really had a vision to hear voices. And so a lot of what was shared in the last two will be part of your recommendations, right? As you think about that action plan that is going to come out of this. And I'll tell you, some brilliant minds in here, and I don't want to go all into my political campaigning space, but a whole lot of you need to be running for positions where you can be a change maker. I'm just going to say that a lot of this lies in space of leadership. And those that are in political spaces, you know how hard it is, right, to create change. It ain't that easy to be on a council, to be on a board of supervisors, to be on a school board. But I tell you, that's where change happens. And so we have to empower ourselves to be in the spaces. It's not always fun, right? It's not always fun. But I tell you, this is where the conversations are happening or not. So with that, I want to, one, acknowledge the folks on Zoom who are not on Zoom with us right now. Dr. Holt, they whipped around, and I've been texting with her the whole time. They were doing phenomenal. They had 2 breakout rooms that they actually had an opportunity to have the same discussions. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through and read all the responses. But one of the things that will happen is you'll get to see all these responses in one kind of summary report. And you're going to notice some of the themes that have come up, which also should really push you all to think about continuing this type of dialogue all the time, right? All over the county. You just continue, and that data over and over is going to be data that's going to, I think, convince people to do some things differently. What I also would like to do, if that's okay, are they on? Oh, okay. Okay. Can you share the screen with the questions? Because I'm going to ask you all to do one thing. If you can pull out your devices, okay, this is going to be really important, and to the point of there's a lot of people not here, right? So one of the things that we want to make sure is accessible is if you pull out your device and you turn on your camera, okay, and you point it towards that QR code, it's going to pull up a survey. Okay, it's going to pull up a survey. And the survey of the exact same questions that you all just discussed. And what I'm going to ask you to do is, if you're really tech savvy, you'll save that link, right? And you'll start texting it to whoever you know. You can share it on your Facebook page. You can share it literally if you need to write it down and put it on a flyer and put it in your neighborhood mailboxes. If you need to talk to someone and collect their responses in writing and email them over to Matthew or to Joanne, and just make sure that these voices are heard. But these are the same questions, okay? Now this is the English version. So once you have that up, I'm gonna now have, in a moment, we'll switch the screen to the Spanish version, okay? Just to make sure. So there's the Spanish version as well. All right, and again, that's everyone. I want you to make sure you have that, because this is our opportunity to invite people to a safe space where surveys are a little safer, right? It's just me and the survey. I can share my truth. There's no one here to judge me. I don't even know who sees the responses. No one knows it's me, but these voices are very important. Okay, and this survey is the same exact questions that you all just discussed. Yes. Sure.
I just want to share a resource because one of the things that I kept hearing consistently was lack of internet access and also information in general. And I'm a little biased because I work for the Lake County Library. But I do encourage everyone to try to reach out to your local branch or even visit the library online because our county librarian is doing amazing work to make internet available to everyone in the county. We also have hotspots and Chromebooks available for free to check out for 3 weeks at a time at each of the library branches. So you can take a Chromebook, you can take a hotspot and have access to internet wherever you are, as long as you can make it to the library. There's also a ton of internet resources that you can access from home on the library's website. So you can Google us, I don't have the exact address. Or just walk into a branch or call a branch. We're always available to help everyone. We're also trying to create an ESL program so we have more Spanish language resources available to the Latinx community.
Powerful. One of the things I heard earlier is one of the barriers is just knowing where the resources are, right? And so I hope you heard that as the library is an absolute great resource in the community, and those hotspots, big deal. Okay, hotspots are a big deal. So they're there, it's just do people know they can access them? All right, so I want to pass it to you, Chairman, just any closing comments, and just again, thank you for hosting here at this amazing rancheria, and just really appreciate your just support and vision in this work. What an amazing group that came out. Yeah. So closing thoughts.
Just wanted to say thank you. When we gather in a circle for wellness and healing and discussion, and it's safe, everyone brings their medicine. Everyone brings their medicine. You see them on the screen. You see their words. You see they look at each other. What did you write? I'm going to write that. Say it again for me. That's a community that can come together. That's a community that can work together and care about one another and have inclusion. So thank you all for spending your Monday night here. Thank you. And if you want to stop by at a slot machine on the way out, I'm not going to stop you. I am not going to stop you. But a lot of people, a lot of people put this together tonight, not just the employees from the county, employees from the resort, but a lot of our space so that we could have a safe place like this. For all that to acknowledge, I just give a big O and thank you for being here tonight and bringing your medicine. And hopefully you can bring one more person next time, and then we can continue to do this great work. So.
And June 5th,
which is a Monday.
Place to be determined, that's right. Yep, but June 5th. But in the Clear Lake area potentially, so June 5th.
If not, we're willing to host again.
Hey.
But just kidding.
Hey.
But yeah, so thank you, and if we can be out there again. I will be out of town, unfortunately, that day, but I'm going to try to Zoom in.
See you on Zoom, absolutely.
So, thank you, everyone, for being here.